Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm really, really pleased to see the houses. At this time, I would like to hand the microphone over to Deborah Goss, who is the president of the Lakeview Ratepayers Association, one of the groups responsible for hosting the meeting tonight, and she's going to offer a land acknowledgement and also talk a little bit about our hosts for tonight. Deborah?
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. Lovely to see everybody out tonight. And first of all, I'd like to say this is an amalgamation of 5 groups working together. The Army and Navy, Luann is over there on the left-hand side. Applewood, our Homeowners Association, and Beryl Chamberlain is there. And Shura, President, is away on a nice cruise, so he's not here, but he has a representative from his community, the lady over there. Lakeview Ratepayers also. And Orchard Heights, I don't know if Tonya is here, I don't see her, but she may be coming in late. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to also acknowledge the fact that Barry Gilbert is here from the Eagle Spirits, our local Indigenous group. And he asked me to say Bonjour Indigo Nawa, which means welcome everybody. Bonjour tout le monde, and good evening to everybody. I'd like to read the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. We would like you to join us in acknowledging this land on which we tread, as part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This land acknowledgement is in recognition of the Indigenous peoples who have inhabited and cared for this land before us for thousands of years. We would like to acknowledge the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwa, Chippewa, Métis, and the Mississaugas of the Credit Nations. We would like to show honor for the sun, the sky, the water, the earth, and its core, which also deserve recognition and respect as necessary elements of our lives here. The Great Tree of Peace is important for us all to join together in unity. We are all connected not only by its roots, but in many subtle ways. We would like to show our gratefulness for the opportunity to work, play, and live on this land by giving our greatest respect to its first inhabitants. Chimigwich. Thank you everybody for listening. And so I'd like to just first of all introduce in alphabetical order. We have Mr. Brian Crombie. I'm going to let the candidates speak for themselves when they have their turn. Dipika Damerla. Stephen Dasko. George Tavares. And Alvin Tedjo. And I'd also like to acknowledge we have a couple of other candidates in the room. Mitch, and I'll say his name wrong, MacEachern. Mitch, where are you? He won't speak at the end. And there's another gentleman here, Mr. Dookie. Right there. And is there anybody else in the room?
Winston.
Oh, Winston Harding. Yes. Harding, thank you. Is there any other candidates that I've missed in the room? Okay. All right, so I'm going to hand you over to Trevor, who's going to be your MC for the evening. Thanks very much, Trevor, for doing that.
Thanks, Deborah. Yes, so it is my privilege to be the moderator or MC tonight. I think not the fact that I actually have not made up my mind yet as to who I'm going to vote for is not the reason I qualify, but simply because I am a citizen of Mississauga. And I'm very keen, like you all are, to hear what some of our mayoral candidates have to say. I'd like to share with you a little bit about sort of my job as the moderator. I'm sort of the guy, the person who's going to try to keep this meeting flowing. We do have a structure set in place, and I'll share that with you in a bit. But I'm also the person who perhaps will be the one to speak up if I think something needs to be said to adjust what's maybe happening in the meeting. I already acknowledged that all of you are here despite the rain and the weather conditions. And I think you all deserve a lot of appreciation and respect for the fact that you're here. We've talked about our groups that are hosting this event. They all deserve a lot of respect for the role that they've played in this. And of course our candidates have made the trek here and are up front and center, and they deserve the respect of all of us. Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that. And so, out of that respect, I know I probably won't have to worry about it, but we do expect courtesy from the group that really sort of is respect for everyone when you show that. Please, no distracting noises, boos, hisses, things like that, that I don't expect to hear in this group. And even with noises when you approve of something that a candidate said, please keep that to a minimum, because you'll be interrupting their little time slot that they have to address the questions, and I'm sure they want to say as much as they can. It's my job to sort of speak up and perhaps offer a warning if I think someone has forgotten about the respect we just talked about, and I'm sure it won't come to the point where I may have to ask someone to leave. We do have an opportunity. We're going to start with candidates are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to have questions that have already been assembled from the various community groups we talked about, from their leaders. And the candidates will each have 1 minute to respond to those questions. When that time is done, we will be bringing up questions that have come from citizens of Mississauga and our various departments, and it can come from you here in the audience today. If you decide that you have a question, you can please take it to the back of the room. I can see Andrea up there holding up some slips of paper, and you can write the question down there, and our volunteers will have a look at the question and sort of make a decision if it's one that can be brought into the fold tonight. We will be restricted by time, for one thing, but the reason we have this format for the questions is, number one, to sort of make sure the questions are on point with respect to the area and the issues for Mississauga, and also to make sure that questions aren't really being repeated over and over again. So that's the format that we encourage you here live in the audience. I believe we're making an attempt to stream this question and answer period. It's not really a debate. And so people who are tuning in via live stream also have a chance to ask questions. We have a little system called wildcards that we've used before in these sort of settings, and each of the candidate, and correct me if I'm wrong, has 2 wildcards. Each wildcard is basically the right to take a minute to speak to an issue that has been raised by another candidate if they think it affects them directly, and that allows them, each card allows them 1 minute. Have you guys been informed of this wild card sort of scenario? No? Okay, so I'm letting you know now. Okay, so even if you don't have the physical wild card, we can keep track. But basically you're allowed 2 opportunities to speak for 1 minute each if you feel that you need to address something that a candidate has said. Okay, and then my goal is to probably wrap up the official sort of part of this. I'm going to target around 8:45 so that the candidates will have a chance to do some closing remarks. I think we'd like to offer the other mayoral candidates who are here a little an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes just about who they are and what they have to say. We do appreciate that they are interested in what's going on in our city for sure. And with that all being said, I guess the first thing to do is we're going to do this in alphabetical order by last name. So, Mr. Brian Crombie, can I please give you 2 minutes to... Thank you.
I want to read just for a second, if I could, the announcement that I got when I was invited to this event. Housing crisis, increased crime concerns, unaffordable tax increases, traffic issues. I was frankly a little perplexed when I read that, because if that's actually true, if that's what Deborah and the other organizers really think is the challenge in Mississauga today, I just don't understand how the leading candidates can be existing city councillors, and the person who's leading the polls is someone who's been there for more than 25 years. There's a complete discontinuity here. If we really have all these problems, unaffordability, tax increases, traffic crisis, crime increasing, with all due respect to some nice people that I know, and they're nice people, they're not doing a good job. The Leafs, I've used this analogy before, the Leafs have got some really good people. They made it to the first round of the Stanley Cup. What do smart people do when the Leafs get kicked out in the first round? They clean house. They get a new coach. They change the players. Last week, what did the Ottawa Senators announce? Clean house. Change things. In business, if you had a business that had this kind of a record, you wouldn't keep the same people, and you certainly wouldn't promote a CEO, the leading counselor that's been there for 25 years. I'm sorry. We have a problem in Mississauga, and until and unless you wake up and say, I demand different, you know what you're going to get? Same old, same old. We're going to be sitting here 2 years from now, and there's going to be an announcement that says, crime is up, housing is unaffordable, taxes are up. I've been chair of the Mississauga City Summit. I've been president of the Mississauga Arts Council. I've been in business for 40 years. I ran Hazel McCallion's last campaign here in 2010.
15 seconds.
I know what it takes to run a business, and I know what it takes to run, I think, a city. And I don't think now is the time for a career politician that's done nothing other than create the problems that we've got to continue the challenges that we've got. We need new leadership. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And I didn't get a chance to let you know, but yes, we've got very diligent and armed timekeepers, okay, who will be keeping the candidates on schedule. I'm very pleased to now introduce our next mayoral candidate, Dipika Damerla, please. Wherever you're comfortable.
Good evening, everybody, and I want to begin by thanking the 4 ratepayer associations and the Army, Navy, Air Force veterans for hosting this event. Thank you so much to everybody who made the time to come out here so that you can make an informed decision. And I say this respectfully, but I am disappointed that Carolyn Parrish is not here today. I think it's really important that if you're planning to run for mayor of any city, let alone the 3rd largest city in Ontario, you show up. And you present your ideas, and you present your plan publicly. And you have the confidence to debate these ideas publicly, which is what all of us are going to do here today. You know, Mississauga's home. This is where I raised my daughter, run a small business, had the enormous privilege of serving as a member of provincial parliament and then serving all of Ontario as a cabinet minister and now as a city councillor. And all of this experience, all of this, has prepared me for today. I am ready to lead. I've sat at the cabinet table, I've made difficult choices, and I've engaged in complex negotiations. And I will bring this experience to the role of mayor. I'm running to keep our property taxes low and to tackle crime. And yes, we must build more homes, but we must also be fair. Fair to the neighborhoods that are impacted by this growth.
15 seconds.
And we have to manage the growth. It is this practical experience and this kind of leadership that I will bring to the role of mayor. I look forward to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the phone that I just heard now that reminded me to turn my phone to silent. And I'm going to ask those of you who do have a phone, perhaps you'll do the same as well, please. Our next mayoral candidate to speak is Mr. Stephen Dasko. Stephen?
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you to our hosts. The future of our city is in our hands right now. Proudly and humbly, I've been your councillor for the past 6 years, and I was re-elected in 2022 with over 70% of the vote. I love helping people, and I get results. We need a mayor that has a heart, that is a true leader, a leader that's vocal and visible, a mayor that's committed to serving all communities of Mississauga, a leader who's accessible, and one who will bring opportunities to our city. A mayor that will invest in culture and embrace our diversity and will take us from good to great, and I'm that mayor. In the years ahead, we'll be redefining who we are as a city, and with new local job opportunities as well. I want Mississauga to be a city with world-class waterfront available to all residents of Mississauga, and that's why I'm proposing the establishment of a waterfront commission to oversee and coordinate integrated programs and services to ensure a world-class waterfront for Mississauga. I want a Mississauga that has more services for our seniors, more places for people of all ages and families to use and enjoy. I want a Mississauga that has a common sense approach to decision making, and that's why I've advocated for, and police have accepted, that we get a new police station in southern Mississauga to deal with our current crime and also the intensification that we have to come. I want a Mississauga to be home to everyone that wants to call Mississauga home, with no place for hate, and as we grow, live and retire here as well. I want to lead Mississauga forward with respect for our existing communities while we continue to build intelligently and follow local and official plans. I want Mississauga that's keeping taxes low at or below the rate of
15 seconds.
inflation while not compromising our services. Our opportunity is right now to have a world-class city. That's why on June 10th, I ask for your support for a strong new mayor for today and tomorrow, and I welcome tonight's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Our next candidate, George Tavares.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity. Can everybody hear me okay? I can just drop the mic if you like. So apparently I need to tell you a little bit about myself because I'm probably the one candidate that you don't really know. So I studied psychology, philosophy, theology, business, political science, engineering, project management, indigenous studies, and more and more and more. That's fine. I speak 4 different languages, and I traveled around the world fixing what was broken. Typically, projects that didn't belong to me, but I was tasked to fix it. So, why are we here? Do you like your city? Right? Do you like the way it's being run?
No.
Do you like the high taxes, the high crime rate? Because if you do, I don't have a problem. Hire the same people that were involved in its decision-making before. And that's not a shot. That is not a shot. The problem with hiring within is that you get very much the same as what you got before. So if you want real change, you need to look a little bit further out, widen your gaze, change your scope, and find somebody potentially that could help. Now, could be me, could be Brian, could be any one of us. All right? So I suggest first start with my website, tavaresformayor.ca. A lot of videos, a lot of ideas. If nothing more, it'll engage you with an idea of maybe there's some change that doesn't need to be drastic, just slight changes, little modifications, little ideas. Then you can go on to everybody else's site and take a look at what they can offer. But please, this isn't all the talent that's here in Mississauga. This isn't all the talent that's here. There's 20 of us. I know we can't get all 20 people here, which would be a shame because they're bright, they're brilliant, they've got some great ideas. But please give them the opportunity to take a look what they have to offer, some great ideas. I can hum for the rest 15, but I'm just going to stop right now. So thank you very much for your time.
That's great. And our final candidate with their own introduction, Alvin Tedjo.
I was on this side of the table, so we'll see how far I can get. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alvin Tedjo. I am a city councilor here in Mississauga, just in Ward 2 on the other side of the river. And I'm really happy to be here today. This is an incredible opportunity to engage with our neighbors, with our friends and our family to talk about the future of our city. We also have to talk about the past and where we've come from and how we got here today. My story in Mississauga starts when I was 4 years old, when my parents came here and moved to Mississauga because they saw an opportunity to start a business, to get an education, to buy a home. And my wife and I chose Mississauga for the same reason. We have 3 young kids, and we wanted to buy a home that was friendly and good for families in a community that was also good for them. But my biggest worry right now is my kids are growing up, and they're 9, 11, and 13 years old. And when we talk about building projects taking 5, 10 years, is that there's not going to be an opportunity for them to do what I did, which is live in the community that they grew up in. And to have a city that's affordable for them to live in. My siblings are much younger than I am, they're in their 30s, and they still live with my parents. So do so many young professionals in this city, nurses, teachers. Everyone in this city who is of a younger generation right now is struggling more than ever before. But so many middle-income families are also struggling. Use of the food bank is through the roof. It's been the highest that it's ever been in the history of the city. Affordability is the biggest challenge that we have right now. So we need to tackle the affordability crisis. We need to tackle the housing crisis. We need to make sure that we have safe and complete communities. We need to be able to get around our city. And so we have a lot of these challenges that we need to tackle head on. And what I'd like to do is bring people together and talk about how we take on those challenges and present the most comprehensive housing plan to make sure that we get it right. And to tackle the
15
affordability
seconds.
crisis, to make sure that we're giving people a real option that saves them money and lets them live in this city. Because that's what it's about. It's about our community, it's about helping each other, and making sure that we have the best city to live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great introductions, candidates. This next phase of the all candidates meeting is questions coming from our community leaders. And candidates, I think originally you were told that you'll get 1 minute to respond to each candidate, but I've been sort of informed that the initial questions from each ratepayer is maybe quite, I don't want to say tough, but let's say involved. So I think, and timekeepers, we're going to expend that to 2 minutes that they can answer, okay? So I've been told I'm in charge, so make it so. Anyways, the protocol will be each time that it's a new question, we'll get a new candidate can answer the question first. So because Mr. Crombie, you started with the introductions, Dipika, you'll be the first person to answer the questions, and I'll help pass, well, you can just pass the mics down yourselves, if you don't mind, to answer the questions. I believe, Deborah, you have the first question, so I'm going to hand the Deborah to Deborah from the Lakeview Ratepayers and ask your question.
Thanks, Trevor. Okay, so Lakeview is undeniably the largest growth area in Mississauga outside of city centre. So this is a two-part question. Have you got your paper ready? Okay, can any of the candidates estimate the tax revenue to the city when the development of Lakeview and Rangeview is complete? It's actually a very simple calculation. And what will you do as mayor, as a new mayor, to mitigate the increased density that we're getting through the MZO? So Lakeview Village and also Rangeview will have a huge transition to this area. How will you influence the city funding that will put into Lakeview, the Lakeview area, the funds that we'll need to make that transition for the next 10 to 20 years of development, for things that are going to improve the area, not just tie it up with construction and bad traffic and all of those things, and make things that will help us, like traffic calming, placemaking, pop-up, creative ground floor spaces and improvements that can help us in Lakeview as taxpayers that are the taxpayers that are here right now, not the taxpayers that are going to be coming. It's a tough question, sorry.
Thank you. So I did a rough back of the envelope calculation. You guys can tell me if it makes sense. I just said 16,000 units and somewhere between $5,000 to $7,000 a year in property taxes. So that comes to, in my calculation, and I did it really quick, somewhere around 100 million a year. Does that answer the question correctly, Deb? Okay, all right. And the more important, the equally important question, of course, was, well, what about the 16,000? And I do believe that it's too much. It really is. Well, we have an MZO. But I also believe that with the right leadership, we can right-size this. I'm not going to say that I can reverse this to 8,000, because I don't think that's going to happen. But I do believe we can get it to below 16,000 if we can work with the province. Premier Ford has shown quite often that he does change his mind, that he does reverse things. So I do believe, and what I really want to impress upon Premier Ford would be fairness. Every community needs to do its part in this housing shortage. We all agree. But we shouldn't be asking some communities to do that much more. 16,000 is way too much more. So I would appeal to the local MPP and Premier Ford that we need fairness for this area. We need to see if we can right-size it. That's the approach that I would take. On the issue of making sure that infrastructure keeps up, with growth. I've always said it's not enough to build homes. It really isn't. And everybody, all you hear is people talking about we need to build more homes.
15 seconds.
We need to build neighborhoods. And that means ensuring that all of the amenities that we rely on to ensure quality of life are included, and I would make a commitment to that. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, because this is not something that you're going to put a magic wand and it's going to grow overnight. This is, quite frankly, an affront to what good planning has been brought into and what visioning has been done and what really came from the community to create a brand new community here and open up the waterfront for everybody. The tax revenue that's going to be created over this is not something over 1, 2, 5 years. They're talking over 30 years, and now they're saying if they could ever build it fully out. There's so many unknowns right now, and you need somebody that knows the file inside and out, and that's been a hard and dedicated proponent of keeping to a plan. And yes, we are getting 67 acres of new waterfront parkland. That's one certainty that we know. Yes, we have an innovation corridor that is going to generate up to 9,000 jobs. Is there any timeline in place? There's not. There's a lot of unknowns. But what we do know is over the years between Rangeview and Lakeview, there's going to be an incredible amount of new people that are coming in. So Lakeview itself is the town of Belleville that's getting put between the lake and Lakeshore. Then you add on Rangeview. Right now we've got a 2-kilometer, 3-stop bus rapid transit, which I think is just, quite frankly, it's useless. I'll be very frank. And what I've been calling for is if we're going to be doing something like this that the province has adamantly said they will not change their mind, then this is time for them to step up. We should look bolder than that. We need to look at things like having the streetcar from the TTC
15 seconds.
extend through and come down East Avenue, along Lakeshore, down East Avenue, and loop right through that whole property to be a proper density carrier, and think about the proper infrastructure in place before we allow certain milestones to go forward, because this has all the makings of great planning, if we do it correctly. Thank you.
All right, so this is kind of a trick question because it all depends on who you elect as mayor, because we have one mayor that says they're going to lower property taxes, you got another mayor that says they're going to raise it, and there's another one that says they're going to freeze it. So I gave rough estimates as being 62 million to 96 million. That's just a rough estimate. There was another question about traffic management. I think if anybody's been on my website, and judging by the metrics, none of you have. There's one. The managing of our traffic. One of them is we have our traffic management system. It's an automated system that'll count using loop sensors, cameras, and a few other really neat little innovative ideas that we've already paid for, and it'll manage the traffic as for the traffic. So if you have more traffic, it'll change the lights so you can move things back and forth. So that's one of the things. The other thing that we need is better transit. Again, if you saw my website, you know I have an initiative to create a better transit management system, or to use the transit management system in conjunction with the traffic management system to get people to move from one spot to another. Now, this isn't just for Mississauga. Oh, sorry, this isn't just for Lakeshore. This is for all of Mississauga. So I'd like to do that, and there's 3 other things that I wanted to do. One of them, which is really important, is, and I've seen this in China, and it works really well. Every stop, they have a kiosk that'll tell you when the next train is coming or when the next bus is coming, how populated the bus is, whether or not there's a chance you're going to get on, or if they're just going to drive right by. And then if it's a holiday or a holiday schedule, it'll ask you where you want to go, and if that bus is not en route, it'll tell you where the next bus stop is, how to get there, and which ways to go in your timeline. So this will actually help a lot of the people throughout Mississauga to get through. So that's the best that I could do in my little 2 minutes, and I'm really sorry, but I know there was another question, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
We're going to trip George over here.
There's it first. I'm a goalie. It happens.
So I'd like to start by actually congratulating Councillor Dasko. Stephen and I sit next to each other at council, and I want to say on our behalf as councillors that Councillor Dasko has been fighting for this community and has done an incredible job advocating for, representing this neighborhood, especially in the issue of the waterfront plan, the park. It's phenomenal work that's been done over several years. And I think the issue that we've got here is that we are trying to plan the best city possible and the best communities possible. And we need the provincial government to let cities do that work. Absolutely, we need to build more housing. When they give us something like this that we have to deal with, or they're mandating certain things with MZOs, absolutely we should fight back and to see what's appropriate for communities. But we also have to move on, and we also have to continue fighting for what's going to be appropriate for moving forward. So what does that mean to me? To me, that means yes and. Yes and let's get the transit done. Yes and let's build the schools. Yes and let's do the innovation center. Yes and let's get this waterfront plan done. Yes and let's improve the parks. And we need to keep working and keep moving forward in order to do that. And so that's the approach that I want to take, is taking the successes that we've had in the city, working with the provincial government and the federal government when they come in and make us do things as well, and say, all right, we're going to do that, but we also need these following things to make sure that this community is going to be livable. Because without the transit, you're right, it's not going to be livable. Without jobs in the community, it's also not going to work. So we need to work together, and we need to find ways to make sure that this community especially, remains and becomes a complete community for everyone to live in. Thank you.
I think this is a coming disaster for all of you. I think this is a complete failure of planning and of advocacy. Let me explain. I think with 16,000 units, they're talking about 25,000 or so people, maybe more, and Brightwater at Mississauga Road and Lakeshore, which is a similar kind of, I think, a coming disaster. There's not one extra lane of roadway, and there's no increase in rapid transit. I thank God I live north of the QEW, because if you live south of the QEW in Mississauga, you are going to be in a congestion nightmare, because there has been no planning for how we're going to deal with this. And I apologize, but a streetcar has a capacity of 150 people. That's not going to solve 15,000 people that are living here. So in answer to your first question, 16,000 residents, $10,000 a year, that's $160,000 a year. But it's going to double, because the other thing, hopefully they'll ask, is actually tax rates right now are going up at twice inflation, not at inflation, twice inflation, and they're misrepresenting what the increase is. So if you put that into a mathematical formula, the way you do it is the amount, 160,000, divided by the long bond minus the growth. That's 10 minus 5%, divide by 5%, that's multiplied by 20. That's $3.2 billion in net present value of tax revenue that's going to come from Lakeview. Mr. Christie, 25 acres. Nothing compared to what you've got here. What are they getting? A GO train station. The development that's at the bottom of the Donlands. Bigger area. What are they getting? They're getting the Ontario line plus a GO train station. Steeles and Yonge, a subway extension, 25,000 units. Other places, for some reason, do a far better job negotiating with the province to get what you need. Now let me give you one idea, because I've been negative, I want to be positive. There is a railway track that goes from Lakeview right up to the Long Branch line. You could have a shuttle that goes from Lakeview to Long Branch, and then the train track actually goes up to Kipling. You could turn, with good advocacy and good planning, you could turn the worst transit located area to the best transit located area, but you need strong leadership.
Thank you. Great answers, everyone. Thank you. Okay. The next question is coming up. Bill, if you want to come up and ask your question. Is it a 2-minute question as well, do you think?
Could be.
Okay.
But I need a minute to get back to my...
What is it? Yeah.
Trevor, do you have the answer?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, actually. So, Deborah, do you want to give your answer to what?
The back of the napkin response to that is $210 million per year coming from Lakeview into the city coffers, which the question is how are we going to get some of that money back to mitigate this, and how we are going to enjoy the benefits of all kinds of things, placemaking, the transit, so those are the comments.
Okay, Carol Chamberlain with the Applewood Acres Homeowners Association. Okay, so our question is, Mississauga bylaw enforcement officers are in charge of enforcing all bylaws in the city of Mississauga. This includes investigating bylaw infringement allegations and issuing warning to bylaw violators. There are very few bylaw officers. They rarely solve the issue. How can you, as mayor, help the existing residents of Mississauga by solving bylaw infringement issues efficiently? And how can the city become more accountable for issues caused by planning and development, example, air conditioner noise, temporary fencing, construction noise, dust, and grading?
Thank you. Councilor Dasko, you start.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Beryl, for the question. And when it comes to bylaw, the way the bylaw works, bylaw officers work in the city is it's reactive. So when a complaint comes in, they'll go out, they'll do the investigation, they'll do that work on it. Do we have enough? This is where I always ask staff, do we have enough? I don't believe we do, and I believe that we need to have additional bylaw people. We have essentially 2 per ward that look after what we're doing. Not enough. Recently there was a nighttime component added on. This came out of talk about fireworks that were going on and some other types of activities like that. And you know, this is where we need to have our bylaw officers and our corporate security, which we do have, properly staffed and resourced. And this is where, again, that new leadership coming in, setting the tone of what's to come, I think is very important because, yes, I will say in southern Mississauga here, especially Ward 1, we have over 1/3 of all the Committee of Adjustment applications that do come in. And we do from time to time because I get anywhere from 80 to 300 calls and emails a day about a variety of different things. And quite often we'll find out about people that are doing work when they shouldn't be doing work, for example, on a Sunday and I actually go out and pay them a visit myself and talk to them about the warnings when I can't reach our bylaw officers. But our 311 staff as well, they need to have more resources as well because quite frankly, they're not running with what I feel is the right and efficient complement, whether it's the funding and the resources that they need. And some of our resources, as we've, some of our bylaws, as we've been going, have started to get updated, but they need to be updated on a more timely basis now because, for example, I just brought in our new tree bylaws just a short while ago, public and private ones. And the public tree bylaw, the last time it had been done was in 1978. So these are times that leadership and pulling together with our council and having relationships on council to be able to get something done for everybody. The timing's now. Thank you.
All right, so I think everybody's in agreement that our bylaw administration, the way that we're doing things is a little old school. I think it's time we change that, so we should do a complete revamp. If anybody who has been on my website knows that I have I plan on using technology to revamp the bylaw and the 311 opportunities that we have. It gives more visibility, it gives you a timeline. You approach it with, you scan the barcode, you say what the problem is, you assign a timeline, you give it to whoever the counselor is in the area, they assign it to the bylaw officers, and the idea is that you can identify whether or not there's true movement on your problem. So that's the first one. The revamping of that thing, the bylaw administration, actually I got that, okay, never mind. So the idea is that you can now identify whether or not your bylaw officers are doing their job properly or in a timely manner. If there's some issues that need to be resolved, like they can't get to it fast enough, if they got there and it wasn't there wasn't enough pictures, you can argue and say that it doesn't happen, it's not happening at an appropriate time. And then my favorite part is at the very end of the year, you can do an assessment on your counselor and your bylaw officers to see if they've done their job properly. And then you give them a pass-fail criteria, and then at the very end of the year, we have a quick, here's the best counselors that are approachable, gets the stuff done on time, whatever, and then top 3 get a reward or something along those lines. Anyways, the idea is that we give them gold stars. Good? Perfect.
I'm always laughing as I get the mic from George. Thank you. Yeah, our municipal enforcement officers are, we don't have enough. We did hire an extra 10 for overnight to deal with a lot of noise complaints that people had. But, we talk about better service and how do we make sure that we get better service for residents. One of the biggest challenges that we had right after we got sworn in, we did switch over to having 311 dispatch be out of the city. And I think that was a mistake that we need to reverse and try to bring back into the city. So if you can call 311. It works 7 to 7, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. So first of all, I think we should make that 24/7. Brampton has a 24/7, Toronto has 24/7. We're just as big of a city and just as important of a city to make sure that we have that service. But the problem with the service right now, I was at Jack Darling, there were 50 cars parked in the middle of the fire route. And I called, it was on the weekend, so it was out of the service hours. And I said, I'm at Jack Darling Park. And then they said, what's the address for that? I'm like, well, it's Jack Darling Park. It's one of the biggest parks we have in the city. I'm like, well, sir, can you please Google that for me? And I'm like, you're on a computer. And he's like, yeah, but I'm in Kingston, so I have no idea where that is. And I'm like, I don't want to say I'm a city councilor and say you have to go do this, but there's got to be an easier way to do this, right? So we need better service, absolutely, and one of that is to make sure that we have 24/7, 311 for people that actually live in the city of Mississauga, who understand and know the city, who can dispatch the right people to make sure that we get the service that we're looking for. And I'm always going to take this opportunity to say, please don't feed the coyotes, because we have so many challenges with the coyotes, because people are feeding them, and we have specific people that are feeding them, and this is also one of the challenges, is that generally speaking, we like to be a friendly city. So our approach, generally speaking, is to educate residents as much as possible. So we always start with an education piece, then a warning piece, then we consider whether or not we want to give them a fine. That we need to be a little bit harsher with some of our neighbors who are deliberately breaking the law, and educate them by giving them a fine, essentially. Thank you.
I've got 3 answers. Number 1 is efficiency. I don't know if any of you have had an insurance claim recently, but the insurance adjusters that come don't come anymore. They take pictures, or someone comes, takes pictures, and it's all done remotely. So I'd like to be able to say, in answer to your question, we'll have more officers and we'll do whatever you want to solve your problems. But that's not realistic. I hope we get into taxes. Taxes are going up in Mississauga at 6.3%. Any company that was going up at 2 or 3 times inflation would be bankrupt today. For some reason, you're putting up with this, and you're just allowing them to say it's a modest 2.3% when it's actually 6.3%. We have to have priorities. I had 2 burglaries in the last 6 months. First time, the response was reasonably good. The second time, the response was the next day. If I was going to spend money, frankly, I'd spend it on more police, not on bylaw officers. I think we've got to find some efficiency on the bylaw officers. And then the third thing, you talk about Jack Darling Park. I got to tell you, I was really frustrated because I do live north of the QEW. I come down to Jack Darling Park or other places in your areas, and in the summertime it says parking fines tripled. I think that's insulting. If you have to triple your parking fines, build some parking spots or have some transit, because clearly the people of Mississauga want to come to the waterfront. Instead of tripling the parking and call the bylaw officer on them, why don't you actually build a nice parking spot for them so they can come and enjoy the waterfront? That should be a waterfront for all. So efficiency, priorities, and actually build what we need to have a great city.
Right on.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack from Brian, and that is we do need to invest in our bylaw officers, and I'll tell you why. It's 2 a.m., and there's a loud party going on and you can't sleep. If you didn't have a robust 311, and we don't, you call the police, which is a really big waste of our resources and way more expensive to have residents calling the police at 2 in the morning for something that they should be calling bylaw. So we're a little bit better than last year. I think last year, 2 a.m., you're out of luck. Now there's a number you can call. It's not necessarily 311, but we need to move to 24/7, absolutely. There's a few other things we need to do. The first is repeat offenders. They need to be fined significantly more. I've been fighting for this. We need the province to enable us to be able to do that, but that is really important. And we need to reduce the time we give people to fix things. When your lawn isn't cut, we give them like 45 days. So for 45 days, it's an eyesore. Then they go mow it, And then it's an ISO for another 45 days because there is no extra penalty. So we really need to look at repeat offenders. The other thing that we need to do better is, so someone complains about a basketball court that's not properly on the front lawn. Bylaw goes and gives them a ticket. Now there's 3 others down the street with the same problem, but bylaw just doesn't do anything. If you're on the street, you found a problem and there's other neighbors with the same problem, fix it at the same time. So these are little fixes, but we need to do that. Finally, I do have a commitment that I'm very excited about. I want to make our 311 really transparent. So you can go online, and if you've complained, you ought to be able to know at any given point where in the system it is. That will be the most powerful thing we can do to increase efficiency, because you should be able to see which department it's at, has it been actioned out, why it's taking so long. That's going to be a game changer. That's something I want to bring in. Thank you so much.
Your wild card?
Yeah.
Wild card, wild card.
Okay, I'm caught on the chair, hang on.
Thanks, Trevor. And I just wanted to make mention of, I'll tell you, there are seasonal increases for people that illegally park, not legally park, illegally park. And that was brought in, it's a doubling of the fine. And why that was because we had people coming in, we have people coming in that treat our neighborhoods and residents like doormats, and people that go and they absolutely have no regard and no respect for the community. And you know what? I'm sorry, but that's disgraceful and it's not good enough. There is parking available. We're actually building additional parking right now. But to say that we should be able to treat South Mississauga like a doormat is absolutely awful. And the other, I will say, when it comes to tall grass and nuisance weeds, this is something that I've taken lead on over the last number of years, and we do actually have a program in place. There's a registry for people that are repeat offenders with tall grass and nuisance weeds, and that's something that you can get added to. So if you have any interest in finding out more information, please feel free to reach out to me, 416-414-4402. That's my cell phone. Thank you.
Thank you. Luann, are you coming up with a question? Sorry, we actually, we didn't do a dry run at this, so when it comes to questions,
I'm really loud. I don't need a microphone.
Okay.
These are questions that have come from the people from the Army and Navy here. I am the president of the Army and Navy and the first woman president ever. Okay, I changed my... How do you personally plan to help decrease property taxes for homeowners?
Is this a 1 or 2 minute answer?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. George, I believe you have the honors.
Okay. There's no conceivable way to decrease property taxes, period. Money needs to go into the coffers. We have capital spending, we have budgetary spending, we have spending. We spend a lot of money. The best way to manage it is to manage our growth. We need we need to spend better money on our infrastructure. We need to identify where we're losing our money. We got to get the money that we're supposed to get back from the government, because we know that we've kind of screwed up there a little bit. There was a recent report that said we were shy, the region appeal, was shy of over $800 million in lost potential revenue. So these are things that we need to look at. I always have an issue with this because we're under the impression that when we do our budget, and that's when we identify whether we're going to increase our budget or increase our taxes or lower our taxes, we're under the impression that we do this, every 3 or 4 weeks, every 3 or 4 times a year. In reality, we do it once. And then we all kind of walk around and we try to shave a little bit off here and there. We manage to knock off maybe 0.5% if we're lucky. I think we need to change that. If we want to manage our growth in property taxes, the smartest thing to do is to sit down with the group, the CEOs and CAOs and all the other O's. We get together as a group every 4 months, and we identify where we're at gaps, where we're spending our money, where we're saving our money, and where we can do better. So that's my answer. I'm not quite sure if that's going to make anybody happy, but it's it's the truth. So thank you very much for your time.
Still rapping, right? So our affordability crisis, this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now as a city. And we need a real plan to help people. We can't change the price of gasoline at the pumps as a municipality. We can't change the price of groceries as a municipality. One of the things we can do is around your property taxes. Not everybody's a homeowner, but many, many people are. Most people are in the city of Mississauga. And this is one of the tools that we have in our tool belt in order to help people. And my plan is a responsible one. It's a responsible one where we can help people by freezing their property taxes over the next 2 years. That'll save people hundreds of dollars each. Hundreds of dollars per household. We also want to help low-income seniors to continue aging in place and stay in their homes by expanding the program that gives them more of a rebate that allows them to stay in those homes. And support small business. We have 100,000 businesses in Mississauga who are still struggling from COVID, and we need to lower their property taxes. And we can do this in a responsible way. And I'm sure some of my colleagues will disagree, and I'll take my wild card chance to answer some of those. But we've costed the program out. We're using 20% of the reserve to pay for it. We're going to continue growing the city and building housing. But with that, have the revenues that we need in order to pay for that. So that we're not going to be behind and not do what Toronto did and then increase your taxes 10% all of a sudden. We're going to keep pace with the investments that we need to do. And we can do this. Take a look at my plan, go to the website, alvintedjo.ca/affordability, and then you can see how we've costed out the entirety of our tax cut and how we're going to freeze property taxes for everyone in this city for the next 2 years. Thank you.
I worked for Jim Pattison, a $9 billion billionaire, and he always used to say, half of solving a problem is understanding it and being able to describe it really well. Because if you don't understand it, you can't describe it, you'll never have a chance of solving it. Your council last year told you that your tax increase in Mississauga was a quote-unquote modest 2.3%, and that the Peel tax increase was 4.2%. But what they did is they took the Mississauga tax increase and divided it by the Mississauga taxes and the Peel taxes. And then they took the Peel tax increase and divided it by the Mississauga taxes and the Peel taxes. If you divided Mississauga tax increase by the Mississauga taxes, you'd get 6.3%. If you divided Peel tax increase by the Peel taxes, you get 8.4%. They're misleading you, or worse, I think they might be misleading themselves. They don't actually know that they're actually not a modest tax increase of 2.3%. They're twice to 3 times inflation. So if they don't understand it, they're never going to be able to solve it. So I guess my answer to your question is hire a business person who actually is not a career politician who's going to get in there and really understand what a budget's all about. In regards to freezing the taxes, he's not, I think, being completely honest with you. Maybe he's got a chance in Mississauga, but number one, he doesn't control Peel. And number two, he doesn't control Peel Police. My understanding is that Peel Police went up by 15%. And I think a lot of us think that, frankly, Peel Police should get some more money. And Peel went up by 8.4%. So how is he going to bring taxes down, negative in Mississauga, to balance out for that? It's impossible.
15
So,
seconds.
Most municipalities outside of Ontario tax by something called tax increment financing, which is taking that $3.2 billion net present value I talked about and financing water, financing transit, financing infrastructure against that. That's the solution, is we can do something better in Mississauga than massively increase taxes over and over and over.
Thank you. 2 commitments from me. The first is that I will keep your property taxes to at or below the rate of inflation. I believe that's a promise that I can deliver for the next 2 years. And the reason I'm doing that is we all know that 70%, almost 70% of our budget municipally is wages in some form or the other, whether it's garbage collection, whether it's snow clearance, whatever the service, we are a service industry. So it's wages. And we all know that wages, especially union wages, will go up with inflation. And so to suggest that somehow you can freeze taxes and pay for the wage increases and not have service cuts just doesn't add up. And that's why I'm promising to keep property taxes at or maybe slightly below the rate of inflation. And the second commitment I'm going to make is, you can freeze a tax and then introduce a new tax. I am not going to introduce any other kind of tax. And the final thing I'm going to say is that the rainy day reserve was never created to freeze taxes. That's wrong. Brampton's tried it. Brampton's reserves are now at 0. And they had to postpone a whole bunch of infrastructure projects. So what's going to happen? At some point, those reserves have to be replenished. And that's when your taxes are just going to go through the roof. And then what about all the infrastructure projects that got delayed and now are more expensive? So I don't think freezing taxes makes sense. It's just not doable. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad, Dipika, that you agree with keeping taxes at or below the rate of inflation, which has been my consistent thing that I always talk about. Because really, what we need to do, first of all, I think at the City of Mississauga, we do a reasonable job. We can always do better. And I've said we need to do a department by department audit of how we're doing things, targeting our spend to make sure that we maximize the spend that we have. Because we want to make sure that we have the lowest taxes that we can, but not sacrificing services in the process, along with that. Also, thinking a little bit differently. If we're always trying to figure out ways to shrink down that dollar, we're not going to be able to do it. We have to think a little bit differently. Part of that includes having a new deal that's done for fair share for appeal. I was chatting about that just a little while ago. And a fair share for Mississauga as well. Because each dollar that we have here that gets charged to your property taxes, 35 cents stays here, the rest of it goes to the region and also to the school boards. So this is high time that we do that, we make that change, and that's working with our upper levels of government. And that's somebody that doesn't want to go out there and beat up on a government, somebody that's going to go out there and work with them and get something done for everybody, because I think that for all levels of government, that serves us well here in Mississauga. And also, we need to look at ways that we grow out our revenue stream, and that's courting more businesses. We want to see, we're the second largest employer right now, aside from Toronto. We want to bring in more business here. It's not increasing those business taxes, it's just bringing in more businesses and increasing our property tax, or sorry, our tax rates as well, our revenue rates as well.
15 seconds.
Yep, thank you. And just to finish off, to say that I'm the only one running that actually voted against a budget. I voted against the regional budget because it was not good enough. It was a 4.5% tax increase, and I thought in its last tax year it was just completely inappropriate. Thank you.
Okay. Right on your chair. There you go.
So I believe we have a couple of wild cards. So Brian, I saw your hand first.
So again, the 4.5% is not right. It's 8.4%. To get 4.5, he's taking the Peel increase and dividing it by Mississauga and Peel. That's not math that anyone else would work on. It doesn't make sense. And so you've got to make sure that you understand the numbers right. So I've got two other suggestions that I'd like to get. One actually is agreeing with Councillor Dasko. Why is Toronto, for the same value of a house, have taxes that are half yours? Because they've got an economic zone downtown Toronto that is an engine for them. Stephen is right. We have the second largest employment zone in all of Canada that goes from Pearson Airport out to Pill Hill. If it was in Kitchener-Waterloo, it would be incubated, it would be funded, we'd have a super cluster. If it was in Vancouver, it would be a biotech cluster. For some reason, we don't generate the commercial taxes, we don't support them. That would be a great solution to the problem. And then the second thing is, think about incremental tax, property tax financing. It works in every municipality outside of Ontario. John Tory passed it provincially. We can actually do it if we want, and it can change things the way we finance infrastructure.
So we currently have one of the highest tax rates in the GTA. Take a look at the list. We're at the bottom of that list. Brampton's right behind us. I don't think it's acceptable that we're willing to say that taxes should continue to go up. I think we need to do more. I don't think it's enough to say that we can freeze it at inflation or hold it to inflation. Inflation was 6.8% a couple of years ago. We don't know what it's going to be. We can do this responsibly. We can do this with 20% of the reserve, not 100% of the reserve the way Brampton did. We're a very well-run city. We're not Toronto. We're not going to make the same mistakes Toronto did. We can learn from that. We can learn from other cities around Canada that have been able to do this and our own history, where we were able to freeze or very, very much keep the tax rate low while we continue to grow the city. More taxpayers into the city equals lower taxes. That's what we're going to do. Thank you.
15 seconds.
Awesome, thanks very much. I'm very pleased with the way the meeting is going so far. I'd just like to say thank you. Our next question, we have somebody, yes, thank you. Come on up. You're representing our fourth Ratepayers group, or group I should say. So please introduce yourself, your group, and then ask your question. This will be the last 2-minute question. Just so you know.
Hi, I'm Julie Wilson from the Lakeview. Julie Wilson from the Sherway Homeowners Association. Sorry. I really do want to live in Lakeview. It's quite lovely. So the Sherway community is at the mercy of Dixie Road to get in and out of our community. Given the future developments along Dixie alone, how will you work with the region to ensure adequate traffic flow given all the extra congestion from Lakeview developments heading up Dixie towards Dundas to do their shopping?
So, I think everybody knows that the region appeal was going to be dissolved with the Hayes-McCallion Act, and then it was undissolved with the repeal of the bill. But one of the good things that did come out of this was that the region is downloading 4 core services, mainly roads, planning, waste, and then water, wastewater might be split off into another organization. But roads is key here in terms of your question, because roads coming from the region down to the city is going to be a very good thing. It means that your local councillor and the city council can work on the issues that face us without having to go to the region and sort it out there too. Because this is the worst example of duplication, where you have another set of traffic lights and traffic engineers and another set of plows and another set of regulations and another group of active transport people and another transit plan. So this will help a lot, and this is a change that we're going to see in the next year or so, and that'll help us plan much better for that road. I will say that I think it's important that we build on some of the things that were already done. The active transportation that you have, the lanes that we have accessible on Dixie is a good thing, but we also need to make sure that there's more buses, more rapid transit up and down Dixie that connects into the transit way and into the Dundas BRT to get people moving in this community, to give people more options. It's about options to get around the city. A lot of people will still choose to use their car, but that's because the other options aren't attractive. You don't want to get on a bike if you don't feel it's safe. You don't want to get on a bus if you have to wait 45 minutes. So until we get a completely integrated system, a network that is safe and separated and reliable for people to use, it's going to get worse. So we need to make sure that we're investing in that, and my plan does that. Thank you.
I am very sorry, but it's going to get a lot worse. Ward 1 is something like 40 to 50,000 people. Lakeview is going to be 25 to 50,000 people, depending on how many units get finally approved and what the density is there. It's going to go up by, Ward 1's going to go up by 50% to potentially 100%. And so far, they have not planned for one extra lane of roadway. Dixie Road, Cawthra are going to be disasters. Brown Line, oh, don't worry about it, it's a topical. Brown's Line is going to be a complete disaster. And you know what happens when people get congestion on the main roads? They take Ogden, they take a whole bunch of other streets. This area with no improved transit is going to be a congestion nightmare. And these people, I hate to tell you because they're nice people, but they have allowed this to happen. There's 2 solutions. One solution is all-day, 2-way go on the Milton-Mississauga line. There's only, 6-7 trains downtown in the morning and out time in the evening. It has, according to the Neptus Foundation and the Big Move, a 8-to-1 benefit to cost ratio. It is the most profitable transit expansion in North America. Most transit expansions have a 1 or a 2 benefit to cost ratio. You have really good transit, it would be the best place and easiest place to get down, and that's going to solve a lot of the problem. And I don't know why Scarborough got an extension, why Shepherd got a subway, why it's going to Richmond Hill, and why it's going to Vaughan. And our councillors haven't done a good job of advocating for Mississauga and getting those kinds of transit expansions for us. And the second thing, as I mentioned, there is a train track. You can go down to Lakeview and see it. It goes right from the old coal plant, goes up to the Long Branch Go, and then there's another chute that goes from just east of Long Branch Go, up to Kipling. If you actually had either a shuttle or a GO train, because it actually could go all the way up to Kipling and then go back downtown, You would turn it from the worst disaster you're going to see to the best transit in all of the GTA. And I choose best transit in the all GTA. But you need someone that's got leadership and some knowledge and, more importantly, some advocacy with the provincial government to demand it.
So I'm going to agree with Brian that congestion is the biggest problem you're facing. It really is. And that's why one of the things I said is we need to try and right size. And that is something that I will try. I can't commit to it because it depends on the provincial government. We need to do a few things. Dixie Road is going to need more buses, but we have to admit it's also going to have more cars. And we need to make room for cars on Dixie Road. We cannot be stupid about it. We cannot be blind and just think buses are going to solve it, or just bike lanes are going to solve it. We need all three, and that's the practical approach I will bring. I am happy and confident enough to say, yes, we need more buses, but yes, we're going to need more car lanes. Mississauga was built on cars. Do we need to transition away from cars? Absolutely. But it's got to be done in a practical way. And that's what I'm going to bring to you. We're going to more than double the population in that area. There's going to be a lot of cars. They have to go somewhere. And yes, we'll build more transit. And that's the other thing that we have. This is not just Mississauga. This is the province of Ontario problem. We have completely in Ontario divorced land use planning from intensification. We are intensifying without building the transit we need. And it's not a Mississauga problem. It's not a city council problem. It's a provincial problem. It's happening everywhere. It is folly, absolute folly. And if you're going to go down the path of that folly, the least we can do is respect the fact that people still need to move around in cars and make room for the car along with everything else. Thank you.
Well, it really is important to have somebody that actually understands and works in the southeast end of the city to lead us forward. Because quite frankly, what has come to the region, and these regional councillors along with me, supported my motion to review Dixie. And this is where we've got 2 lanes, a center lane, and then painted bike lane on, which is unbelievably dangerous. A poor lady named Penny was killed on a scooter a few years ago. And this is, for me, this was an affront. I asked our regional staff, and I agree with Alvin, that we should have our roads downloaded. 100% it makes sense for Mississauga to do that. I've been advocating for that for years since I came on council because it makes sense. We're also funding Brampton's roads, regional roads, and Caledon's roads on Mississauga's tax time, and that to me is an affront to our taxpayers. But quite frankly, what I've asked for, and we have a report that's actually coming back in September. So anybody that's saying, this hasn't been dealt with, it has, and clearly some haven't done their homework on this, to know that yes, there's a report coming back in September to have that review done. And that's to say that we should have a dedicated cycle or multi-use trail on one side, have a sidewalk on the other side, possibly go back to 4 lanes, and put a set of lights in at 1400 Dixie, which is also known as the fairways. These are some of the things that we're looking at. And then also, when we get past that up towards Dixie, there's a rethink there as well when it comes to both the Applewood and Sherway communities, because they are going to be significantly impacted through all of this growth as well, as you get into the Dixie Mall area. And then on top of that, we've also got the Orchard Heights community as well, which is something that will end up get the impact. We're feeling it now as they're doing the highway interchange work as well. So yes, absolutely, these are topics that we very much have to get dealt with. Thank you.
All right, Julie, you're right. It's not going to get any better. And even with these ideas that are great, it's going to be at least 6, maybe 10 years before they actually can implement it. So it's not going to get any better. Deborah, I remember when the MTOs first came out, how upset you were. I loved your passion. I understood it. I felt it. It's not going to get any better. So, how do we get it better? I don't like blaming anybody, right? I don't like blaming anybody, but I do like looking for solutions. And again, if you looked on my website, you find I have 2 initiatives. One of them was the virtual bus rapid transit system. The idea was that we use the transponders to gauge the speed or the lights, to change the lights at the right time so that it's almost as though it's a dedicated bus lane. We can do that with the traffic management systems. We can do that up and down Bloor, up and down Cawthra. We can keep right on going. If we do this properly, and I already got an email from somebody in Toronto that said they were interested in this idea so that we can do that up and down Brown's Line. So there are some things that we can do without doing any digging, and this is all non-infrastructure, this is all software. We can implement it today. There's no environmental assessments, there's no pricing out there for any of that stuff. This is infrastructure, this is technology that already exists, we bought, and we implemented in 2019, and we just haven't configured it yet. So there is some hope. And I don't want you to think that we've completely forgotten about you. And regardless of who wins this, whether I win it or not, I'm advocating for this to happen. Regardless of whether or not I win, this is something I'm really pushing for. Good? Perfect.
Thank you. Dipika, I believe you want to use your wild card. I get excited about the wild cards. Here we go.
I just wanted to clarify a few things. The first is I am aware that there's a plan to bring back 4 lanes on Dixie. And that's the folly in the first place that was taken away. And it's really interesting that, here we are talking about bringing back 4 lanes on Dixie, and at the same time, council is thinking about removing 2 lanes on Bloor Street, which, by the way, I oppose. And I also, just want to say that it's a few times it's been said that you sort of have to know and be the councillor for a certain area to be an effective mayor. I think Mississauga is a very big city. And what the mayor really needs is to have a level head and bring a pragmatic approach. No candidate is going to know the details of every corner. I mean, there's Northwest Mississauga, there's Northeast Mississauga, there's Cooksville. So I think it's really important to keep in mind that every area has its own needs. But what we need is a mayor who can be empathetic, who understands, and who brings a practical lens. Thank you.
I'm just going to untangle this. Actually, surprise me, Scott. The next one.
Your shoe is not. Another shoe. How higher?
I disagree that it's a provincial-wide problem. I think Mississauga is unique, and I think you've got to ask yourself, so why did Vaughan get a subway extension? Why did Vaughan and Richmond Hill get the subway on Yonge extension? Why did Markham get all-day two-way go? It's because they had a quid pro quo. They went to the provincial government, they said, we're going to build the density in the right spot because we know you need that density, but in exchange we want to get transit. The Mr. Christie's site, they're getting a GO train station, as I mentioned. The place at the Don Lands, at the bottom of the Don River, they're getting a GO and the Ontario line. I don't think you've been well served. You've got a councillor that's running for mayor that's in the #1 position right now, that has been on council longer than anyone other than Hazen McCallion, who has been part of politics and knows everybody. She hasn't done it. You've got a councillor that's in second place that was part of the Liberal government that hasn't been able to convince the Liberal government for it. You've got other people that, for some reason, aren't able to negotiate, advocate, whatever it is, with the provincial government to get what you deserve, which is good transit, and that's the only solution.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. So that's, every group has had a chance to ask, I think, their first question.
Yeah.
We're now going to go into the second round of questions, and I am going to remind our candidates we're down to the 1-minute response. So think quickly and be concise. I have no idea what these questions are. So we're starting with Luann. Okay, I don't need to hand you the mic.
Stop everybody dirty look at me for ringing the bell. In a municipal election, why are some of you declaring political designations when you are supposed to be fighting for our city against federal rules that are made that are not beneficial to our city?
All right, you get the first of this one.
Well, I'm certainly not declaring any political designation, so it doesn't apply to me. I do think that one candidate is actually sending out emails that they got from the Liberal leadership campaign. And I know that because this person that's got the emails would never have gotten that email from that councillor if it hadn't got it from the Liberal leadership campaign. I think that's completely inappropriate. I think that you've got some people here that are effectively running on political partisan manners. There was a debate in UTM 2 weeks ago that they excluded everyone except for 2 of them, and it was organized by a former Queen's Park Liberal staffer. And she had in the fall been very partisan in her criticism of the whole criticism against people that were against fourplex. You've got a system right now where I think some of these people are bringing party politics into Mississauga, and I think that is wrong. And I think that we've got to stop it. And I would like to suggest that maybe think, just for a second, like George said, about someone independent, someone new, just for a chance.
Thank you. You know, when the asylum seeker crisis was unfolding, and it's still ongoing here in Mississauga, I was one of the few people who stood up to the federal government. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, I called out Prime Minister Trudeau and said he is not being fair to Mississauga. Same thing on criminal code reform and bail reform. I have called out Prime Minister Trudeau and said he's not moving fast enough. The only thing I care about as a city councillor is what's best for Mississauga. And the only thing I will care about as mayor is what's best for Mississauga, and I have proven it. I have proven it. In fact, people have come to me and said, well, how could you do this? How could you call the federal government out? I said, well, if they're wrong, if they're not being fair to Mississauga, I will call them out. Thank you.
I firmly believe if you're not looking after the best interests of Mississauga, then you're not doing what we're supposed to be doing for everybody in the community. Having party affiliation serves absolutely nobody. At the provincial and at the federal level, governments change. And if you happen to put your stake into the ground on a particular party, what happens? You get left behind. Not you get left behind, the city gets left behind. This is something that we've unfortunately had. We've had that happen to us. This is the time to change that chapter over into something new, to be able to get what we should be getting for infrastructure, for other amenities that we should be having. We've been left out in the cold for a long time. Now's the opportunity to have somebody that's going to lead for everyone. Not by kicking somebody in the head, but by working with somebody, sitting down, working through things to make sure that we keep delivering for the city of Mississauga time and time again. Thank you very much.
All right, Luann, thanks for the question. So, one of the big things that I have is I didn't take any donations or volunteers to work on my platform. So I have no conflict of interest whatsoever. So all of the ideas are exactly mine. I have no party affiliation. I don't need it. That's fine. But I do have something to say. I do believe that we should have a 2-term limit. So councillors, 2 terms, mayor, 2, and then you're out. But if you're going to do something like that, thank you. Go ahead and applaud that. Yes. But if you're going to do that, they have to worry about their political careers too. So they have to look forward towards their political career. So I'm just saying, there's a little bit of yin and yang here. We might not be getting the best versions of them by following that. So I'm just going to leave that with you guys. Is that all right? Got it? Good.
So I'm actually going to say a little bit in defense of partisan politics at the other levels, because absolutely, municipal politics is not partisan, and it shouldn't be. And in Alberta, where they're trying to introduce it in Edmonton and in Calgary, everyone's fighting it because I think it's inappropriate. We need to find ways to work together. That's the system that we have, and that's the system that works. But if you want to change your province for the better, you want to change your country for the better, you have to get involved. And in order to get involved, we have a partisan system. You join a party. I don't think that's something that you should be shamed for if you want to get involved and make your community better. And it doesn't matter what party it's for, but if you want to get involved, if you want to be an elected MP or an MPP, that's the path to do that. And we've had lots of experience here up and down this table of people who've worked for various stripes
15
and
seconds.
governments. But in the city, the important thing is to be able to have the right relationships. And I've worked with the federal government in order to get more housing funding. I've worked with the provincial government in order to get more transit funding. That's what you need. You need that type of leadership who can work with everyone, and that's what I will do. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Our next question, I don't know who it's coming from. Deb? Tanya? Awesome.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm the president of the Orchard Heights Homeowners Association. And our question is, what is your plan to get developers to put shovels in the ground after approval of build applications? Will their approval be withdrawn after a certain amount of time if no building occurs?
Thank you, I've lost track. Dipika, I think it's your turn to go first. Thank you.
So I'll just frame this a bit, which is to say that municipalities do not have power over a developer to tell them to build. We do approvals, and we can provide all of the approvals, but the decision as to what date a builder decides to put shovels in the ground is all theirs. We have no control over that. That said, we can provide incentives perhaps to incent them to build faster, and that's what my plan does. One of the key planks in my housing plan is to remove and waive the development charges for purpose-built rentals. And it's on a first-come, first-served basis, and it's a small part of money, it's a finite pot of money. So the idea is you use it or lose it. So the first few to build in Mississauga purpose-built rentals,
15
once this
seconds.
opens up, would be the ones to get it, so that would incent them to build faster. And on the use it or lose it, only the province can bring that legislation in. It is something that I have advocated for, and I will continue to advocate for. Thank you.
Well, for me, it doesn't take a mayoral election to call for that. I actually have brought forward a motion that we've sent in on behalf of all of council to the province to bring in use it or lose it legislation, because we have absolutely no time period right now. I always talk about a particular example, and that's right at Cawthra and Atwater. And that's a particular piece of property that was approved for 400 units. And that was in 1992, and it's still waiting to be built. So yes, the city of Mississauga, we approve things, or if it goes to, for example, a tribunal, they end up approving things. But in terms of pulling a permit, getting a shovel in the ground, this is what we have to focus on. These are the issues that we're looking at right now. And so this is something that, right now, this is the opportunity, and having a mayor that is going to be able to do that, work on everybody's behalf, not just on behalf of Mississauga, but on behalf of the province of Ontario, to make sure that we move forward in a responsible way, in a timely way. This is our time to do it. Thank you.
All right, get ready to laugh, Alvin. All right, the Ontario government passed the Reduced Red Tape Act about 4 weeks ago. One of them was the Use It or Lose It Act, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but it has happened, and it hasn't passed yet, but it's a brilliant way to do it, and I like what the two councillors currently have said, because it's right, it's accurate, it's good. So the Use It or Lose It is a good opportunity for builders to start building in a timely manner, or they lose their opportunity. So that's the first one. The second one is I also created incentives for purpose-built rentals and for housing the homeless. So the idea is that as you build it quicker, build it faster, you get a better, you get tax incentives, possibly even removing entire building fees. So there's some ideas that we have there. It's on my website, please, tavaresformayor.ca. I'm not doing it any justice.
All right.
I tried. Sure.
That's the way it goes.
So yes, happy to support Councillor Dasko on his motion on use it or lose it. I was talking with CBC about that the other day in terms of how important it is for us to proceed on that policy. So well done to everyone who's working on that. We need to make sure we're building the right types of housing. Right now, we have 32 cranes in the sky, 31 of them are market housing, condos. Only one of them is rental. So that doesn't add to the types of housing that people want. So we need to make a different stream to help build more rental, to build more affordable, to build more supportive housing. Because the pro formas, the way they calculate how they're going to get the money in order to build those buildings are different. They need a different stream in order to get that done. And we need to talk to the developers and say, what are some of the challenges? We know that it takes up to 10 years from concept to keys in terms of getting this building done. So one of the ideas that I have is to try and bridge these programs together so that you can do your site plan approval at the same time you're doing your building permit, at the same time you're doing your zoning application. We can do that. We can pilot that. We've seen that in other jurisdictions. We can get that done to get more housing built faster. Thank you.
Use it or lose it may sound good, but it's a complete disaster. It'll make the housing crisis worse. And the reason why is developers need to sell 50 to 70% of all their units before they get bank financing. And if they lose it after they've sold 40% and they're not quite there, they're not going to build. No Monday threats from any of these people on this table are going to make a developer or force a bank to give them $100 million to build. And you know what? With a rental, it's the same thing. They've got to have a pro forma that they can give to a bank that says, I know it's going to get absorbed over time. I was at a conference today, the land development conference today. They said that we have got 1 million people in the next 5 years that aren't going to be able to get a home because we're building less than half of what we need. The only solution is development fees. We've got to get rid of them on purpose-built rental and any condo less than 500,000. And number two, we've got 30% of every new unit is taxes. You know the axe the tax that we've heard in Ottawa? We got to axe the taxes on housing because the government is taking way too much. It's increasing the cost for young people. It's the most regressive tax system we have, and that's why we've got the problem.
Thank you. I'll just point out that I'd like to suggest there's 10 minutes left of this format for questions so that there will be time for our other male candidates to have a 2-minute presentation before you guys have your time to say goodbye. So 2 more questions.
Remember, let me get back.
I'll hold the mic.
Gotta time yourself.
Okay. Many of you are city councillors. Many people have said they are a great councillor, therefore I will vote for them as mayor. What challenges will you face in the role of mayor that you don't presently face as a councillor? For those that are not city councillors, how do you feel the role differs? We need to start asking our politicians interview questions.
Thanks, Carol. Great question. Stephen?
I always look at things as what's not just good for the ward, but what's always good for the city. And having a mayor that truly looks at not just where we are as a city, but where we're going as a city and leading that city and being able to collaborate with other councillors around our council table. This is really what we need going forward, to show that leadership, to be able to set the tone for what we're going to do and go forward, to be able to build things that make sense. Building a great downtown. We've got a good downtown. It's a lot of tall buildings, but there's no great downtown. It's setting that force into motion, getting transit back on track, leading to be able to bring in more employment and jobs. And that will fill not just one ward, but this is something that we look at holistically for our whole city. We've got official plans, local area plans, and also as we're looking at growing out to the next phase of the city is what's that vision? And I have the vision, and I'll work like crazy to make sure that we get there because I know that we've got it right here in our hands. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. So I checked the YouTube videos. There are no how to be a strong mayor in Mississauga, so that doesn't help me. But I will say this, and you've seen this in big business, and you'll see it everywhere that you're working. You're a product of your environment. And if the environment that you're working in is the city of Mississauga, and they're having difficulties in understanding how to create change, hiring within won't make it better. So I'm not quite sure if that answered your question. I'm hoping it did, but that's my answer. Good? Good.
I did laugh again, George. Thank you.
Good.
The challenges of the mayor are enormous, right? There's 11 councillors who each manage their own communities and understand their neighbors and their specific issues. As mayor, you need to understand the challenges of all of them. You need to be able to work with all of them. You need to be able to prove that you can get things done for everyone. You need to be the person who represents the city to the provincial government and to be able to empathize and talk to everyone on behalf of the city, whether or not they voted for you or not, because that's who you have to serve. And I'm incredibly invested in this race because I'm invested in this city. I've lived here almost my entire life. My parents are still here, they're aging seniors, my kids are trying to grow up in this city, and I want to be here for them. And I'm exactly the median age of people in the city of Mississauga, and I love this city. And I want to make sure that we do everything we can, that we have a city that's affordable, that's livable, that has housing, that everyone can live in. That's the #1 goal. And we need a mayor who can bring people together in order to do that. Thank you.
The city of Mississauga is a $1 billion corporation with 5,000 employees, and the taxes are out of control. Elect a business person, don't elect a career politician. I think one of the best mayors that Canada's had is Nenshi. He came in from the outside. I think one of the best prime ministers we've had is Brian Mulroney. He came in from the outside. One of the best finance ministers we've had is Paul Martin. He came in from the outside. They all had great business experience. Even Hazen McCallion was a business person until she was 55 before she ran for mayor. We remember her as being mayor for a long time, but she was a business person for the vast majority of her life. I wasn't going to run. But then I took a look at some of the challenges that we've got, and even though these people are wonderful people, I don't think they're up to running the city of Mississauga with the challenges that we've got. I think, and if you don't like me, George is excellent. Jamie Dookie here is an efficiency expert. Whereas I'm Alive is one of the most dynamic, inspirational people I've met. There are outside people that you can give some consideration to. Don't think you've only got to go with the existing people. Nenshi, 2 weeks before election day, was at 8% of the polls, and he ended up winning.
I'm going to share a story. I'm the councillor for Ward 7. It's an area that is starved for green space. And there was a proposal to buy some green space in Ward 10. And a number of councillors came to me and said, you know, you really shouldn't be voting in support of buying more green space in Ward 10 because there's a finite pool of money that the city buys green space from. And every dollar that's going to buy something in Ward 10 means there's less money to buy green space in Cooksville, which is really, really cash-starved. But I decided to support the purchase of green space in Ward 10, and that's because it was such a good deal. The price was so low.
15 seconds.
I would have been ashamed to let it go just because, you know, I'm thinking just about my ward. So it's just an example. I think all of us, just because we are councillors doesn't mean we vote on everything. And it is incumbent upon us to do our homework and not just vote along with the ward councillor always, but actually to see what's best for the city, and that's what I've done. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to bring up our last question now. I know there were a lot of questions that we couldn't get to, and I didn't even get a chance to see them all, so I apologize to those of you who had thoughtful questions for our candidates. Perhaps there will be other opportunities where you can meet with the candidates either individually or perhaps in a group like this and have your question addressed then. Deborah, you've got the last question to ask everyone before we move on to the next phase.
Yep. And I'd like to add, we will be providing the questions that have been supplied to us to the candidates, and we hope that they can respond, and we'll add them to a website or try and put them out. There are some other opportunities for last minute or candidates meetings coming up this week. This is a question from Eagle Spirits, the Indigenous community. How will you work with the Indigenous community in the healing process, as this community has the largest amount of Indigenous people living here? Well, what will you do to improve relationships with them? Thanks.
That would be me. How many minutes do I have? Sorry. Not enough time. That is absolutely not enough time. I was fortunate enough to study or get my certificate in Canadian Indigenous Studies and the history. I think everybody needs to learn. This is going to take a lot longer than 2 minutes, and I'm sorry. Sorry, 1 minute, even worse. Trying to squeeze it out there. I do think that the city of Mississauga should pay for anybody that wishes to take that online course. It's an incredible course. It's completely heartbreaking to witness what the Indigenous people had gone through. But the first step in learning, healing is learning. And then we need to focus in on a few things. I love the idea of the healing lodges.
15 seconds.
I think it's a really important opportunity for that. But until you understand the history and why it's so different than the American history, which is tragic, I can't give it enough justice. 10 seconds, 15 seconds isn't going to be an hour wouldn't give me enough time to explain it. But my apologies for that. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think we're just beginning in terms of truth and reconciliation in this country. In this city, we need to do a lot more. We know we need to do a lot more.
Before? That's not me.
Sorry, before I was elected, I was working at Ryerson University, and we went through a lot to try to understand the hurt and the pain that was caused there, and to start building a new relationship with Indigenous people in Canada. And we renamed the university Toronto Metropolitan University. But it wasn't just about the name. We don't want just token actions. We need real relationships. We need real ways to show that we're learning and we're understanding, and we want to continue to build and heal. And that includes providing space, having a building, having resources for the Indigenous community to thrive in the city with what they need in terms of learning and teaching and providing us, everyone else, settlers in this country, with that relationship so that they understand, and we understand more importantly, how to build and heal and move forward. Thank you.
U.S. President Lincoln, I think, said that the way they treated their black brothers and sisters was the original sin of the United States. I think if we actually admitted that the way we've treated our Indigenous brothers and sisters was one of the original sins, if not the original sin of Canada, I think that we would come close to the truth and reconciliation that we need to have. I'll give you 2 suggestions, if I could. I've toured the Indigenous Appreciation exhibit that's in Fort Edmonton. It's in a valley in Edmonton. It's incredible. And they have beautiful artifacts from their heritage, but also a whole thing of a residential school. So you've got the beauty of their culture, but also you are confronted with what we have done collectively for them. And frankly, the Totem Pole Museum that is in Stanley Park is absolutely beautiful, and everyone comes away from that really moved. Why don't we have something like that at Britannia Farms, which is 120 acres right on here in Ontario, that's given to the people of Peel for educational purposes, that we've done nothing with for 20 years. It's sat fallow. We could have an Indigenous Appreciation Zone, we could have a winter fair, we could have a sugar bush. Let's exhibit ourselves.
You know, as Mississauga, we're one of the few large cities with an Indigenous name, and we take great pride in it. And I think we need to move from tokenism to real change, and I'm going to share an example. I sat on the board of the TRCA, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And like many meetings, we started our meeting with a land acknowledgement. Then there was an item on the agenda which was naming of trails. And the report said that some Indigenous names had been considered, but they had been rejected because they were too long and it would be hard for our emergency responders, our first responders. So we just did the land acknowledgement, But we couldn't get ourselves to name something because
15
the question
seconds.
is, who is it difficult for? Right? So then I moved a motion saying, no, we have to find a way to accommodate these names. And so we did change staff's recommendation to not go with the Indigenous names, and in fact, we did go with the Indigenous names. And I think that's the kind of leadership I would bring as mayor. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question, and I must say, as one of the people that helped found Eagle Spirits, along with Barry Gilbert, as he's done a lot of work on truth and reconciliation, I'm proud to have had incredible support and endorsement by former Chief Carolyn King. And in terms of a lot of the work that we've started to do and we continue to do, one of that is an Indigenous Arts Walk that we have down at the mouth of the Credit River. The first piece was called This Dance, and that's in front of the Fram building where the old St. Lawrence Starch was. That was carved by a local carver named Sid. Some might know him as Sawmill Sid. Much more is coming. That is being worked on through the guidance of Philip Cote. And then as well, we also, I also supported having our flag being flown. That's up at Mississauga, and that's for the Mississaugas of the Credit. And also the Jim Toby Lakeview Conservation Area, which is opening in July of next year, is going to have an Indigenous theme there as well, with the gathering area as well. And much, much more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to depart a little bit right now because of that question of my role as moderator, and I'm going to just speak a little personally myself on that topic. I like the question to the Mayorals, what is the city can you do, but I would like to invite all of you as citizens of this country to take it upon yourselves to pay a little bit more attention if you need to and learn what's going on. I've had the opportunity, for instance, I've taken a class that the Eagle Spirits has offered. It's an opportunity to learn. But for yourselves, if there's an article in the paper, read it. If there's a song on the radio, listen to the words. If there's an art exhibit in your neighborhood, attend and just go. I think it's not just the great organizations like Eagle Spirits or the City of Mississauga or whatever that are going to be the solutions to the problems that exist. I think it's going to come from each and every one of us as individuals. I invite you all to play your parts. Okay, so the next part of this, I would like to invite to start with, I believe we have 3 mayoral candidates that were not part of the panel up here. But we'd like to invite each of them to come up and just speak for 2 minutes to introduce themselves, because we do appreciate the fact that you do care about what's going on and is happening in the city and perhaps a role you can play in it. So I'm going to ask, and I apologize if I don't know the names. Is there a gentleman named Mitch in blue shirt? You're running for mayor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you like 2 minutes?
I would love to.
Come on up.
Thank you, everybody. I haven't been here since I was 6. There's Santa sitting on Santa's lap up here for Christmas. Did anybody come to those Christmas things here? We used to do those here, yeah? Those were pretty cool. Do they still happen?
No.
Are they still a thing? No? Why? You can't afford it. It's always about money at the end of the day. Sorry. I'm one of those politicians well, I'm not even a politician, I'm a musician, so I swear candidly, and I forgive me for that. I just be candid for you guys. I got involved because I want to understand. Like Brian said, if you don't understand the problems, you're halfway gotten out the door. You don't even know what you're doing. And to be frank, I don't understand a goddamn thing that's going on. From the municipal level to the provincial level to the federal level, it just seems like it's just discord. Not talking to one another, not listening to one another. I don't know how to change that other than by being candid and inviting people to get more politically involved, candidly, not aggressively, not like, I'm a liberal, so I can't talk to the conservatives. You know, and I don't mean to be pedantic. I just think the fundamental problem is that I can understand it is that nobody's listening to one another. And you don't listen by talking. You don't listen by telling people what to do. I don't know how to negotiate with the provincial government. I don't know how to get Doug Ford to care about us. I don't know how to do that other than just ignore the system that is functioning and start listening to one another in the municipal level. It would be great to re-empower the municipalities. There are workarounds, provincial legislation to empower the municipalities, but that's a provincial thing, so we need to get the provincial government to change its mind. And it's just like, this is just very frustrating. I don't know if you guys all feel frustrated, but I feel frustrated.
Yes.
So I really want you guys, like the gentleman invited you guys to do, 50 seconds, the gentleman invited you to do your own research. Do your own research. Get politically involved. I know I'm talking to you guys are here, so you guys are doing it. But we got to get other people talking. We got to get other people listening. We got to make this fun again. Otherwise, the train's going off the tracks. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the guys up here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sir, I believe you're running for mayor too. Would you like 2 minutes? We'd love you to hear from you.
Be alive. Be alive. Be alive, everyone. I am Winston Harding, and I want to thank the Lakeview Association for inviting us here tonight. Well, my program here is simple. We need the subway in Mississauga. I have spoken to the former premier, and I said to her that there should be a special lottery to fund the subway. We do not want any money to come from taxpayers. We need affordable housing. We need more help for seniors. We need more benches in the parks, washroom, and we need more lights. When you're going in the city in the winter time, people need shelter so that they don't have to stand at the bus stop and the cold wind hitting them. I say to you, I will stand for you in City Hall, and my doors are open. Winston Harding will speak for you. So vote for me. And for taxes, we're talking about the climate change, what we are having. I'm saying to you, each and every one of you, I want you to be happy. I want you to share your dreams with your children, grandchildren. And I want Mississauga to be a vibrant city. Away with the other city. We need to build our city. We're talking about the lakefront, what is coming there. Transportation. How are you going to have proper transportation without having a subway in Mississauga? They're trying to put Bloor Street as one lane. We need 2 lanes. We need it to stay the same way. I'm passionate about
15 seconds.
And I say thank you all for hearing me, and be alive and be blessed.
Sir, I believe you're running for mayor too. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to speak for 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Dookie. I'm running for mayor. www.dookieformayor.com. One of the common theme you heard tonight from the sitting councillors is we need to do better. Why? Because they have not been doing good. You have an opportunity to make a change in this election. The time is now. You need a change. The decision is yours. You can't go with the same old and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You have an opportunity to take a look at our platforms. My platform is simple: cutting your taxes, rolling back your taxes. Some of the council says that is not possible. I tell you, it is possible. Based on the fact the way your property taxes are calculated is based on your property value. It's not, you don't get more services, you don't get different services. You pay more in taxes, you get the same snowplow, the same cleaning, the same road cleaning, the same garbage pickup. One of my plans is to have the region of Peel amalgamated, where you will go from 3 mayors and 1 region of Peel chair to 1 mayor and 1 administrative council. Amalgamation of Peel, we see that you don't vote for a city councillor and automatically get a regional councillor that sits 1 day a week and collects $60,000 extra a year. You're going to end up with 1 efficient council. You're going to have less that you're going to pay in expenses. You're going to have reduced cost of operation. I will remove the stormwater levy. I will work upon amending the bylaw where your 3-hour parking limit will be gone. If you want to park on the street in the night, you will purchase a permit which will generate revenue.
15 seconds.
Additional revenue streams will be a municipal insurance where your insurance for auto will go down over a period of years. A municipal lottery. All this will generate $103 million in excess to offset your zero municipal property taxes. Again, vote Jamie Dookie, June 10th.
Thank you. At this time, before candidates, I give you a chance to do your final speeches. I would like to say on behalf of all the groups, thank you to all of you for coming out today. We really do appreciate you speaking to everybody here who was interested in what you had to say. Not everybody who was invited to come today chose to. So it means a lot to us that you did come today, so thank you. We're going to start with you, sir, and we'll just go down the table for your final speeches. And I just want to remind myself that it's candidates have 2 minutes each for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for including us. I really appreciate it. There have been some debates that haven't included everyone, and I think that this has been very democratic, and you've been a wonderful audience listening to us, so thank you so much for that. I've been reasonably negative, and I apologize for that, but I think it's called for. But I also want to end with some vision, if I could, because I think that's one of the other challenges that we've had in Mississauga. I think we used to aspire to greatness. Hayes McCallion built Celebration Square, City Hall, the Living Arts Center, the Hershey Center. What have we done of late? I don't think that much. Marcus G. in the Globe and Mail 2 weeks ago talked about how Toronto didn't have a there on the waterfront. We should have a there on the waterfront. We've got an 18-acre piece of property, 150,000 square foot warehouse that sits out into the lake. It's owned by the federal government. It could be retail entertainment. It could be Fisherman's Wharf. It could be South Street Seaport. It could be Granville Island. But we have to have a mayor and a council that stands up and says to the federal government, this is what we want it to be. Britannia Farms, 120 acres. It sat fallow. It's actually owned by you. It was given to the people of Peel for educational purposes. If it was in Toronto, it would be Riverdale Zoo or Black Creek Pioneer Village. How come it just sits with barbed wire all around it? The Pinchin Farms, Riverdale, and Arundel Conservation Area is the third largest urban park in all of North America. Only Stanley Park and Central Park in Manhattan are bigger. But did you even know that? Do you go visit it? Is it programmed right? Is it got the right facilities? You know, who was it spoke about we need washrooms and park benches? You go to Central Park, there's an art gallery, there's all that kind of stuff. That's what we could have. And then I think the most transformational change for Mississauga, we've been talking about for 25 years and nothing has happened, is all-day, two-way, frequent GO train service on the Milton-Mississauga line. I would add a station in Cawthra. If we had that, we'd have a surface subway in Mississauga. It would solve a lot of the traffic problems. It would be economic development. Those would be the notes for development. Markham got it. Richmond Hill got it. Brampton got it. Why? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with Mississauga?
You have a clear choice in this race between Carolyn and I. It's a two-woman race, and we couldn't be more different. I have the experience, the ideas, and the vision to be the mayor of this city. In over a decade of being elected, I earned a reputation of getting things done. And the things that I'm proudest of accomplishing are not the ones that were splashiest or big projects. But they were the ones where I was told it couldn't be done, and I got it done. As a new councillor, I was told that there is no way I could get a BIA in Cooksville, that it had been tried multiple times and failed. I got it done. I wanted to do a street festival on Dundas Street, and I was told by staff, no way. There's no way we can shut down Dundas Street. I got it done. There was an illegal weed store in my riding. The police was trying to shut it down for a very long time, and I was told it's not going to get shut down. I worked with law enforcement. We used some unorthodox methods. We got it shut down. And it is this kind of attitude and this experience that I will bring to the role of mayor. And yes, I am running to keep your property taxes low, and I am running to tackle crime, and I am running to build more houses, but also neighborhoods. But I have a greater ambition. I want to build a Mississauga where everyday people can get ahead. You know, I came to this country as a young woman
15 seconds.
with big dreams and no plans, but an unshakable faith and belief that Canada would have opportunity for me. And I want to build a Mississauga where there's opportunity for young families and everybody to get ahead, build a better life for themselves and their children, and that's why I'm running. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us here for tonight's discussion. This election truly is a transformational election that we're going to have for our city. We know where we've been for 50 years. It's where we're going for the next 50 years. It's how we're going to redefine ourselves as a city. It's where we're going to have that common sense approach to city building. In our path ahead, we're going to have great opportunities. We really will. But we're also going to have challenges. And those challenges, as we do, we face them together. And this election, it's really an opportunity to elect a strong new voice for today and for tomorrow. This isn't a 2-year challenge or a 3-year challenge. This is an 8 to 10-year challenge. The future of Mississauga, everyone, this is really it right now. The stakes are high. I put my name forward to be on the ballot on June 10th. Vote Stephen Dasko to be our next mayor of Mississauga. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
All right, so far we've heard some great ideas about housing, transit, roads, taxes, crime. The beauty about a situation like this is come June 11th, regardless of who wins, each one of these people that are currently on council are now obligated and committed to doing those things that they said they would do. Good? So the future's bright, regardless of who wins this one. Although I'd like to be the one that wins. I'd like to point out that we do have another election. Ward 5 is having an election. I think I see somebody here. Can somebody make themselves available? Say hi. All right, so that's Shelley Scott England, correct? Is there anyone else? All right, so anyways, I just wanted to point out that she was here and we do have another election. Tavares for Mayor.ca. I'm not giving myself enough credit for the work that I do, but that's just me being humble. But I thank you very much for coming here and listening to me carry on because I can be a bit of a hand. But thank you very much for your time.
So I'm going to start by saying thank you absolutely everyone for coming tonight, to Trevor, to Beryl, and Luann. I think I'm going to have nightmares of this bell tonight as I go to bed, thinking about it's going to be my new alarm in the morning. And really thank you to my colleagues for being here as well, all the candidates who are in the room. And I have to respectfully disagree with Dipika around your choice. Because you do have more than 2 choices. There are 20 people running in this election, and I respect your opinion and your right to pick who you feel is going to be the best. Keep doing that. Going to be the best mayor in the city of Mississauga. So you have a choice. You have time. You have just under 2 weeks to decide who you want to lead this city. Who do you feel is going to fight for you? Who is going to represent you? Who understands the challenges that you're going through with paying your bills? With seeing whether or not your kids or your grandkids can afford a home to live in the city, whether or not you feel safe in the city with cars being stolen, with break-ins. Who do you want to lead that city? I'm incredibly invested in this city, and I love this city. And I want to see us do better. I want to see us do everything that we can to help people afford to live in this city, to help people feel safe in this city, to help people feel like they can continue to be a part of this as they grow old. And I know we were talking about career politicians. I just started this job a couple years ago. I didn't look to run for mayor, but I saw an opportunity where I've been learning and growing in this role as a councillor for the last 2 years and saying, we can get this done, we can do better. And I've worked with so many people at different levels of government to get more funding for housing for our city, because I'm going to continue fighting for you. To get more transit for the city, because I will continue fighting for you. Because I believe we can build more
15
transit.
seconds.
We can build more affordable housing. We can build a better future for everyone in this city. And I need you all to go out and vote, because only 21% of people voted last time. So make sure your voice is heard. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight.
Fantastic. Again, candidates, thank you very much for your comments, your wisdom, your insights, your thoughts, your hopes, and to talking with us all today. Timekeepers, great job. Made my job easier. Okay. On behalf of all of you who are here, I want to again thank the Lakeview Ratepayers Association, the Army, Navy, Air Force building, Orchard Heights, Sherway Homes and Applewood, their ratepayers associations, for their role in this. Hey, if you guys are in a neighborhood, and I'm guessing you are, consider joining your local ratepayer association, okay? It's, those of us, we are volunteers, and all the funding we get really sort of comes from you guys. And of course, so does our guidance on how we should present ourselves at council or for our community. And of course, and I'm just going to repeat what I think all of the candidates have said and certainly feel, is thank you to you guys for coming out, listening. I didn't have to kick one of you out. That's fantastic. I hope that you guys appreciated the questions that were asked, and they answered a lot of yours. But hey, you know what? Maybe if you do have a question, particularly for a specific candidate, as we sort of end the official part now, perhaps with Luann's permission, I invite you to maybe talk to the candidates for a little bit afterwards and meet them, maybe ask a question before we might have to officially really kick you out of here. How much time we got?
That's fine. I don't even know.
Okay. Luann turns into the boss as of now, but she's giving you some time.
You got a half an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you again and all.